Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey. In today's video, I will be taking a look at my transfer plans going into FPL Gameweek 2. Right then, so Gameweek 1 is in the books. After weeks and weeks of planning, it was a little bit of an iffy start for me, but plenty of you out of there would have had a much better game week than me. But do let me know in the comments how you did in game week 1 after all your planning, whether or not you beat me, whether or not you used a chip as well. So a lot of bench boosts out there I saw did really, really well. I'll pin a comment. Do let me know how you got on. I'd love to see it. In the meantime though, if you enjoyed today's video, I really appreciate it if you could hit like and subscribe. I'm aiming for 100 likes on this video. It'd be great if we could get there. But for now, let's take a look at my game week 1 team. And in goal, Sanchez, not bad performance overall, got a save point and of course kept the clean sheet. I think Chelsea were a little bit fortunate to get away with a clean sheet there, considering the way in which the goal was disallowed from the free kick. But by the letter of the law, fair enough. So I'll get lucky at times this season, and I will put that one down to a little bit of luck. But Sanchez's performance, generally speaking, wasn't too bad. And I'm happy with him with Dubravka as my keeper combination. Dubravka obviously started for Burnley, which is all I really hoped for. Moving into my backline, Porro did keep the clean sheet, but Burnley notched up 1xG away at Spurs. So it's one to keep an eye on, that Spurs still aren't watertight. But with Man City next up, I'm interested to see how they set up their defence and whether or not they set up in a more robust way than we're used to because of the opponent. Maybe because it was up against Burnley, they were happier to lose a little bit of control on the break because they didn't think that Burnley were going to muster too much attacking threat. And against Man City, maybe they'll be a little bit more solid. So Porro off to a good start with 6 points, clean sheet, and did create a fair few chances. So he's not going anywhere for a couple of weeks at least. Murillo didn't get anywhere near the defensive contribution points threshold, but that is mainly because Nottingham Forest dominated the game against Brentford. Brentford were very poor, so that is one to keep an eye on, possibly a team that might struggle a little bit this season. But I'm not too worried about Nottingham Forest defence. They conceded a penalty. On another day, that clean sheet would have held, and it would have been a strong performance from them all round. And in matches where Murillo's going to have to do a bit more defending, I still think he'll be very good on the defensive contribution points. Speaking of DEFCONs, Tarkowski did hit that threshold after about 60 minutes in a match against Leeds that they did not have it all their own way whatsoever. So Everton did quite a lot of defending. Leeds were very good on the day as well. So again, watch out for that. 2 of the promoted clubs at least, so Sunderland and Leeds, really impressed in game week 1. So maybe they're not going to be whipping boys so much this season. So back to Tarkowski, obviously hit the DEFCONs early and for quite a while looked likely to get a bit of a monster haul with the clean sheet and bonus points up until the point in which they conceded the penalty. I think a little bit unlucky to have that penalty given, considering he was trying to hide his arm behind his back. But again, by the letter of the law, it is technically a penalty, so I can't feel too hard done by. But it was a bit gutting seeing, I think it was 7 extra points that I lost out on from that penalty because he was on bonus points and the clean sheet. So that was maybe a little bit of a gut punch, but these things go. Obviously, I got lucky with the Sanchez clean sheet. Got a little bit unlucky with Tarkowski perhaps, but I think overall Leeds probably did deserve to win the game. So I wouldn't have been too angry if Leeds had scored from open play. So I probably shouldn't be too upset at the fact that they conceded a penalty and obviously clean sheet wipeout there. On the bench, my 2 defenders, Anderson and Stev, neither of them did too much, and I don't regret benching either of them for game week 1. I still think they'll come in handy at times, especially Anderson. Moving into my midfield, Salah was the only one of the premiums that really did anything for me this week, and even he left it very late. He was a little bit on the peripheral of everything good Liverpool did in game week 1, but we've seen this from Salah in the past. I don't want to panic. I'm a little bit concerned that he doesn't seem quite as involved in the last 2 matches I've seen in the Community Shield and obviously now in game week 1 as we might have seen him in previous seasons. And players like Ekatike, Gakpo, Wirtz will take goal share. So I'm not panicking on him whatsoever, but I am just putting a pin in it and keeping an eye on how involved Salah is in the next couple of game weeks, whether or not he is still drifting wide a little bit, or if that's just very much the normal ebb and flow of how Liverpool play. And we've seen it in seasons past. Salah doesn't look too involved and then all of a sudden pops up with a couple of goals in any given game week. So he's off to a decent enough start, but the performance wasn't the most convincing. So I've got an eye on him, but I think he's fine for now, and I wouldn't be doing anything too drastic after 1 game week's worth of data. Moving over, let's talk about the three other premiums and sub-premiums in the same category here. So Palmer, Fernandes and Watkins. Starting off with Watkins, a disappointing performance overall from Aston Villa. I think Watkins only had one shot on goal. They didn't have any shots until after half time. And I will put that more down to Newcastle's performance. They made it very, very tough. They got a stranglehold on the game from that three in midfield. We know how good and combative they are in the midfield. And Villa just didn't really get going at any point. The red card obviously didn't help either. They've got Brentford next up. So Watkins, I think, is absolutely fine to own at the moment. A little bit concerning from game week 1, but we've got seasons and seasons and seasons of data on Watkins, on Villa, and Emery's a top coach. I would not be surprised to see them hit 3 or 4 against Brentford in game week 2. And if they do, I'm going to feel pretty good about my Ollie Watkins prospects over the next few game weeks as well, considering the fixtures are still very, very nice. So I think he's fine for now. Bruno and Palmer were maybe a little bit more concerning. Bruno, less so than Palmer, because I did expect him to play a little bit deeper, especially against Arsenal as well, by the way. He probably had instruction not to get forward quite as often as we might see him do against Fulham or Burnley. So the next couple of game weeks will be really telling on Bruno, whether or not he does get more involved in the attacking phases. For what it's worth, despite a game that most people are saying was pretty quiet for Bruno, he very nearly hit DEFCON threshold, despite Man United being on the front foot for most of the game. He also nearly got the assist for the Dorgu attempt, obviously hit the post there. And if both of those things had held, we'd be looking at something like a 7-pointer minimum, maybe even bonus points in there, off of what was a very quiet game for him. So I still have faith in Bruno Fernandes over the next few. And let's face it, did not own him for the Arsenal game. It's the next two, especially the Burnley one in game week 3, that I'm very interested in. So I think let's wait and see on Bruno, but it is a lot of money to be spending on a player that is dropping fairly deep. So let's just see what positions he takes up in the next couple of games and how involved he is. Palmer, I would say, is probably my biggest concern of those three right now. Now, for almost half a season's worth of data, so pretty much since the turn of the year into 2025, he hasn't been as effective. He's been played more centrally. And when he's played in that number 10 role, like he was over the weekend, he does drift left a little bit more than drifting right. And a lot of people have been saying this is not a me thing. It's not me trying to be really clever. I've seen a lot of very, very intelligent people, much more intelligent than me as well, suggesting that when he's operating and drifting into those left-hand pockets of space, he is much less effective than when he's holding his width on the right-hand side a little bit more and cutting inside. So I'm a little bit concerned about him. I will say it's slightly game state dependent because Palace, we know they're a very good defence. We know they can block out a side. And the combination of their 3 centre-backs and their 2 centre-mids really squeezed the Chelsea midfield and their final third opportunities by just making sure that they had no gaps in which to play, because the centre mids dropped back in and there were no real spaces for Palmer, João Pedro, or even Enzo Fernandez at times to operate within. So I'm willing to maybe wait and see on Palmer a little bit because the next few fixtures are pretty good as a batch. West Ham in particular did not impress in game week 1. So let's see how Palmer does against West Ham. But if he's playing in that sort of left-hand side of the 10 role and operating in that channel, then I am a little bit generally concerned. But he is still on penalties. He is still getting 90 minutes. He is on thinner ice than perhaps some of the other players I've got in my side, though. If he keeps performing at this level, I am concerned. But one game week is not the whole data set that I wanted to make that decision with. Looking around, though, there is so much I can do with that money if I was to downgrade him. So he is in my thoughts to maybe have a look at selling if this trend continues. Final few performances to mention. I thought Anderson was very, very good. Obviously got the assist, a good assist for Chris Wood too. Nearly picked up another, got a big chance towards the end as well. Very nearly hit DEFCON. And overall, a performance that, as an FPL asset, I'd be very happy if he repeated that week on week. I don't expect something as all action as that, or as involved in the attacking phases as that every single week. And I also don't expect Nottingham Forest to dominate like they did against Brentford every single week. But Anderson was off to a good start. He got 90 minutes as well, which I was maybe a little bit concerned about. But as long as he's getting 90 minutes, he'll hit DEFCON more often than not. And he'll get the odd assist. He'll get the odd attacking return as well, because he is getting involved in those final third phases of play. So I'm happy with him. Ndiaye, we'll talk about a little bit in a transfer plan section later on, but very disappointing from Everton against Leeds. I think it's always going to be tough. Game week 1 going up a promoted side who are playing at home. So I understand that there are maybe mitigating factors here, but Ndiaye just was not involved in the attacking phases as much as I'd want him to be. I am maybe a little bit reliant on penalties with him, and at 6.5 million, I'm looking around and there are some pretty decent options at his price and below. So it's not going to take much for me to want to move off of him, considering the other options are performing very well. So he's on extremely thin ice already. I wouldn't say I'm regretting going for him, because I'll never regret going for a penalty taker who gets 80 to 90 minutes a match. But from what I saw from Everton, owning an Everton attacker is kind of reliant on Everton actually attacking, and they just weren't doing that much of that against Leeds. And I know it's game state. I know that Leeds were a good side, and they were one of the better sides, or the most impressive sides in game week 1 for me on paper. But I still do need that Everton attack to function at least half decently for Ndiaye to be a decent option. So I'm a little bit concerned there. Finally, Strand Larsen also blanked for me, but I saw enough from Wolves and from Strand Larsen to say that I'm pretty convinced that he's going to be a good option this season at 6.5 million. We don't know whether he's on penalties for sure, but considering Arias started on the bench, I'd be surprised if Strand Larsen didn't get the penalties. And he gave a pretty good performance. He was getting involved. He was hassling the centre-backs. He got a few shots away. At times, I felt like a goal was maybe coming for Wolves. Yes, they got blown away by City in the end, but I don't think it painted the whole picture of the match. And I think Strand Larsen will be decent value for money at 6.5 throughout the season. Let me know how you got on in the comments below, and let's have a look at some of my early thinking for transfer plans ahead of game week 2. So option number 1 would be to move Ndiaye, as I kind of hinted at, onto someone like Reijnders ahead of game week 2. Now, Man City's next few fixtures are pretty good on paper, but not amazing. However, the performance I saw from Reijnders suggests to me that he's going to be the early season bandwagon, and I don't really want to miss out on that. He's already gone up in price once. I imagine he's going to be very close to moving up to 5.7 over the next couple of days as well, and he does seem like the early season bandwagon at time of recording. Obviously, the situation can change at Man City very quickly, and we don't ever get guarantees from Pep on who's going to get game time, especially new signings. But as far as new signings go, I can't really remember a better debut performance than Reijnders gave against Wolves. He was all action. He was the perfect box-to-box centre mid, and it did remind me a little bit of Gundogan, maybe even to an extent Yaya Toure as well from seasons past. And Pep, we know, wants that combative box-to-box midfielder operating in those spaces. So Reijnders, his minutes look, I think, fairly safe. And if that is the case, at 5.6, even 5.7, all the way up to 6 million and beyond, to be honest, could still be very good value for money. It's just whether or not I need to use a transfer to get to him immediately, and whether I've seen enough from both him and also on the flip side, Ndiaye, to say I'm willing to get rid of the penalty taker, take 0.9 million out of my starting 11, and just go with 2 5.5-ish midfielders alongside my premium assets, because that is a bit of a structural issue moving down the line. If I wanted to then get to a 7 million midfielder or an 8 million midfielder, I'd most likely have to downgrade one of my premium assets rather than being able to go from Ndiaye up. And that does concern me a little bit. So structurally, this move is perhaps a little bit worrying for me. However, everything we've seen from Reijnders versus everything we've seen from Ndiaye in game week 1 suggests to me that despite missing out on the penalties, Reijnders is going to be the better of the two assets. Now, let me know in the comments below, would you make this move ahead of game week 2? Because this is the one that I'm probably most tempted by. I didn't plan on using a transfer at all going into game week 2 or game week 3, to be honest. But the situation does change pretty quickly in FPL. We need to be adaptive. We need to react to new information from game week 1, and I don't think there's too much that I learned from Everton in game week 1 or from Man City generally, but if anything was learned, it's that Reijnders' minutes look more secure than I first assumed they would be. And if his minutes are very good, stronger than what I thought they would be to begin with, at 5.6, 5.7 million, he's still going to be very good value for money. The reason I didn't go for him in game week 1 to begin with is because I didn't feel like there was that guarantee that he definitely starts every week and he definitely gets great minutes. And whilst I don't think it's guaranteed, I think having seen the game week 1 performance, I'd be very surprised if Pep also saw that and didn't think that he was an essential player to keep in that Man City 11 for the foreseeable future. So with what we've seen, it is pretty tempting to me to just hold my hands up, say that not going with Reijnders was a bit of a mistake and just get him as quickly as possible. Now, obviously, I can't move him from Elliot Anderson anymore because he's risen in price, but having seen Anderson's performance, I wouldn't really want to sell him either anyway. So it would be for Ndiaye. Let me know in the comments below whether this is a move you would make or not, or whether or not you think more information is still important here and Reijnders just isn't going to get 2 attacking returns every game anyway. I mean, the XGI is not bad, but it's also not suggesting that he's going to be getting a couple of attacking returns every single week. So let me know in the comments below whether or not you think it's one that I can maybe postpone for another week, collect some more information, or I need to get this done as soon as possible. So option 2 for a free transfer going into game week 2 that did briefly play on my mind whilst watching Chelsea play against Crystal Palace would be to say, fine, I've seen enough from Cole Palmer in the last 6 months to suggest that maybe he's not the best player to be owning right now, but in a really aggressive manner, also moving across to a captainable player against Leeds at home in Bukayo Saka. Now, this move is less likely for me now, having seen the Leeds performance last night. I think they held their own really well against Everton, and I don't think they're going to be pushovers as much as some of the other promoted clubs have been in recent seasons. So whilst I still think that Arsenal fixture at home to Leeds is a good one, I don't know whether it's worth using a free transfer just to bring in a player for that specific fixture to captain them against them. Now, we don't know if Saka's on penalties. In fact, there's a little bit of a rumor going around on in the FPL community on X at the moment, basically saying that Gyökeres has been chosen as the penalty taker. But whether or not Gyökeres even starts in game week 2 is maybe up for debate right now as well. So Saka might get penalties. We know how good he is. But is it worth bringing him in just to captain him for 1 game week? I would say probably not, especially considering the Palmer fixture against West Ham is also not a bad one. Over the next 5 game weeks, the Solio Analytics data suggests that Palmer should be ahead, not only in the XGI projection for the next 5, but also the expected points as well. So I think this would be maybe a little bit knee-jerk. And it's not like Saka had a great game against Man United either anyway. So I think I would personally leave this one for now. Palmer was frustrating, and I do have my eye on him. But for now, I don't think it's worth using the transfer to just get across to Saka, especially considering after Leeds is out the way, Arsenal's fixtures don't look that great either. So I think for me, I'm going to leave this one. But again, let me know in the comments below whether this is one that would tempt you. Right then, so a quick look at my bus team as it stands ahead of game week 2. So at the moment, I'm playing Sanchez in goal away at West Ham rather than doubling up on the Burnley defence at home to Sunderland. I think I saw enough from Sunderland to suggest that I definitely can't guarantee a clean sheet in that fixture, no matter how tight Burnley make it for them. However, considering Esteve is a bit of a defensive contributions monster potentially, and the other 2 defenders I've currently got on my bench don't have easy fixtures, I'm happy enough maybe starting one of the 2 Burnley defence. I think West Ham away for Chelsea is a decent clean sheet fixture for them, and because it's tight enough on the clean sheet odds right now, I don't want too many eggs in the Burnley basket, so I'm happy to split there and maybe go with Sanchez alongside Esteve. Tarkowski and Murillo are just going to tick along with Defcons most weeks, so I'm happy starting them into the midfield. Again, I'm not realistically looking at making a move for any of the premium assets just yet. So Salah, Palmer, Fernandes and Watkins are all probably going to be safe for another week for now. But as I mentioned, thin ice for Cole Palmer, having a look at Bruno, having a look at Watkins. For now, they're absolutely fine. Ndiaye is the position in which I'm most likely to make a transfer potentially. We'll obviously discuss this later on in the week when we look at my team selection, but I need to have a high bar for transfers. Obviously, only 1 free at the moment, and I do have future plans that require more transfers. So by the time we get to game week 4, I'm going to want another Liverpool asset. I'm probably going to want some Crystal Palace as well. So do I want to be using a transfer now where I previously hadn't planned on, and get rid of a penalty taker as well, just so I can have what looks like the early season bandwagon in Reijnders, who goes up against Spurs, followed by, I think it's Brighton, Man United, then Arsenal. So it's not a bad set of fixtures, but it's also not great. So yeah, let me know in the comments below whether or not you'd make that move. It does change my structure a little bit to 2 5.5 million midfielders, which doesn't fill me with confidence, but the situation changes very quickly in FPL, as I said at the start of the video, and maybe that is where the value is this season. Maybe those 2 5.5s are going to be game breakers, and I'm still pretty convinced that Anderson's going to be a good pick right now, as long as he's still getting 90. So why not just have both? And I know that people who went with both of them in Game Week 1 did really well out of it. So I don't hate it as an option. Let me know in the comments below whether you would do that. And then elsewhere, I've got Watkins up top against Brentford. I'm expecting that to be a game in which he can score a couple of goals in. So really fingers crossed on that one. And then Strand Larsen away at Bournemouth as well. I was impressed with him in Game Week 1, so I'm happy enough owning him for now. So as we reach the end of today's video, let me know if you've got any questions with your team ahead of Game Week 2 and what you think of my transfer plans so far. If you enjoyed it, if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel, that would be greatly, greatly appreciated. For now, though, I'll see you tomorrow as we take a look at the best captains to pick ahead of Game Week 2, a full detailed analysis on that to come, and then my team selection will be the following day.